is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This snuck up on me. It was me thinking I had plenty of time to repot this because the leaves weren't showing. I forgot that the leaves on this are a dark colour at first. They come out bright green once they do come out, but they're a dark colour. And as a consequence they're creeping out already, and I've only just noticed. So you can see the leaves have started. So this is my last chance to repot this, and the reason I'm repotting it is because the pot's broken, plus it's been in there for donkey's years, it won't water. The water just runs out and it doesn't stay hydrated very well. So it's got to come out of the pot. I haven't done a bonsai repot for about 7-8 years. First job is it was wired in to hold it steady and keep it in contact with the media. So the first thing we do is get rid of the wire. And I'm cutting it here, whereas I will actually get rid of it from below. But I need these bits out, they won't pull through. So once the wire's off, in theory, it should lift out. I did say in theory, didn't I? There we go. That was the idea of cutting the wires, yeah? It's the fact that they just pull through now. And that, unfortunately, is rubbish. Never mind. Never mind. Now, I'll put the tools up one end and then mess up the other end. But the first thing I need to do is recover the this really is pot bang, poor little thing. I don't think I'm going to be able to recover that somehow. I will try. What I'm trying to do is get the gauze out that goes over the drainage holes. Quite honestly, I don't know why I'm bothering. I've got some new stuff. Right, so what we do now is just basically rake away from the centre. Always rake outwards from the centre, and effectively what you're doing is you're combing the roots away from the trunk, which is the way you want them to grow. You want them to grow away from the trunk. So this will get rid of the weeds and the moss and the top layer of soil, media. You don't need to go mad with this. I mean, I've seen people wash every bit of old media off with a pressure hose and just leaving totally bare roots. The problem you've got with that is that those bare roots don't need to spend very long in the air and they will shrivel up and die. It used to be in the media. And most tree roots, the feeding roots, are really fine. The thick roots on a tree don't feed the tree, they hold it in place. It's the little fine roots that do all the feeding, and they can shrivel and die very, very quickly. So by not taking all the soil off, it gives them a chance to hang on. I'm just going around the edge now to loosen that. I know I said always comb away, but I've done the combing away now, and I'm now removing media. And then what we've got to do, without knocking all the buds off, is get underneath. So what I need to do is position that sort of like that. What we've got to do now is scrape away underneath. And hopefully in doing that, those bits of gauze will come out. Oh, I cheated! Because there are a lot of drainage holes, I put one big bit in instead of lots of little bits. Actually, that's quite a good idea. If I'd have thought of doing that now, it's out of practice. nice root system actually, and a lot of the finer roots around the outside here will extend, so they will get going. And then the only trimming to do is roots that have ended up forming a circle or are hanging down quite a lot, just give them a trim. Now the thing is with tree roots, unlike orchid roots, you have a lot of grit in the media, and I've often asked why. Well, first of all, it's drainage, and the other thing is, every time a tree root comes up against an obstacle, it branches to go round it. It will go one each side. So every bit of grit that it comes up across produces a finer root system. Yeah? So every root that gets trimmed will form multiple new roots, not just one. So it's well worth doing. Right. Oh, I've forgotten how hard work it is. If you think this one's hard work, I've got to do my pine in a minute. Which I'll do that as a separate video, otherwise they go on too long. Right, so this has actually got what would have been a really nice base to it had somebody not chopped all the roots off and just left them like that. So they won't grow now. Then you're sort of stuck with that as the media line, whereas that would have expanded that base quite nicely. And the only trimming I'm going to do on this is a twin trunk. So anything that's decided to go between the two trunks is coming off. To keep it as a twin trunk. To be a twin trunk, you have to see through the gap basically. So we just keep those sort of trimmed off, just so that there is a gap. And then this tree is going to need a lot of training, an awful lot. It's got two very ugly caps where they've been chopped, and they weren't professionally chopped, quite honestly. Now this one I'm working on because I've already selected a new leader, but that's going to take 5 years before that thickens up and sort of blends in with this, and it's never going to look nice. And then this one, whoever chopped the top off allowed one to come out sideways, which is just wrong. So it's never going to be a brilliant tree. It looks quite good when it's in leaf though, because it hides those ugly bits. But it would never make a winter display, that's for sure. Right, so that's that. Now I've got to go and get a pot. The only pot I've got is a training pot, plastic training pot, that's suitable in size for that. So that's what it'll have to be. And we'll sort out. These are the things I was trying to save. These little butterfly clips that I make. And they basically hold the gauze over the drainage holes. Now a training pot's probably only going to have 2, so I only need to rescue 2 of these, and if I need any more I know where they are. They're just 2 loops basically. You just make 2 loops and then you poke them through the gauze and bend the wire underneath the pot, so they just hold the gauze in place. Right. Rescue me tools before we chuck the rubbish out. And to chuck the rubbish out, I can just go out the conservatory door. So I'll just get tidied up. Unfortunately, I still have to go round to the carport to where all the media is and sort some media out. So it's the age-old expression, I'll be back. Okay, as I said, I've only got a training pot. It's plastic. They're dirt cheap. And they're so that you don't have to spend a lot of money on a pot while you're getting your plant to look something like a bonsai, something reasonable basically. So yeah, it's plenty big enough for that, plenty big enough, and it will have a lot more root run than it had in the other pot, so that's good. I'll be wiring into the pot, so got some. With the wiring into the pot, it's got to be strong enough to do the job, otherwise when you twist the pliers around it just snaps. But not too thick that it's unworkable, so that'll do. And first job is to get some mesh across those two drainage holes so that all the media doesn't fall out. It serves two purposes actually, because it also keeps the things like slugs and stuff, stops them getting in there. So I'm just going to use the old stuff. Just basically need a couple of, to be perfect. As I said, I did buy some new stuff, but why waste a piece like this? There's nothing wrong with it. Right, now obviously that goes on the inside of the pot, not the outside. And then what we do is we get these little butterfly loops and we push them through the gauze like that. So I'm trying to do this one-handed so that you can see. I'm making a right mess of it, quite honestly. Just select a couple of holes, push it through, hold it in place where you want it, and then your two bits are sticking out the bottom, you just bend them over and that's got the gauze in place. Won't fall now and won't get messed up while I'm fiddling around with the media. So that's what basically these little loops are for. To just grab hold of the gauze and hold it in place while you mess about with the media and everything. Right, so that's done that. That stops all the media falling out. Make sure they're nice and firm, you're not going to get messed up. Now what we've got here, can you see? Yes, if I get that out of the way you can. This is the bonsai media that I bought, and it consists of quite a few component parts. There's akadama in there. What else was in there? You know, I've forgotten, completely forgotten. But there were some stones, but basically this stuff won't break down. Yeah? And some of it holds moisture and some of it doesn't. So some of it serves a drainage purpose and some of it has, you know, retains some moisture. And then here we have, this is potting compost, ordinary Westland, as it's got a brand name on it, Westland potting compost or whatever, which is fibrous. And then this is John Innes number 2, which effectively is dirt. And then this is grit. And the first thing we do is put some grit in the bottom. That's just for drainage purposes. It stops the holes getting blocked up and gives water a chance to drain out of those holes. So we have a layer of that. This white stuff here is Kokodama, I think that's called. It's a type of akadama that's very, very good for pines. You could plant your pine bonsai in that and it would be happy. And in the warmer weather you'd be watering your pot 3 times a day, which we don't want to do. So all of the rest of this, I'm just going to put a bit more drainage in, all of the rest of this now just gets mixed up. This will be my media. It's mixed up well. The main reason for making sure it's mixed up well is that you don't get any random bits that stay too wet, if you see what I mean. In other words, the grit and anything that you've added for drainage is thoroughly mixed in and it will work nicely. And I was told by several people who taught me a lot about bonsai, can you hear it? And if you can't hear it, there's not enough grit in it. So it should make a noise, it should be crunchy. Right, now the next thing we have to do is, there is no front of the pot, not on a training pot, but there could be a front to the tree. So we're going to have a small right hand trunk or a small left hand trunk. Now quite honestly, this larger, what is now your left-hand trunk, curves slightly away and then back towards you. So strictly speaking, that ought to be the front of the tree, because we don't want the tree curving away from us. So by definition, it needs to go that way round. And you then have to decide with a twin trunk, do you want the smaller trunk slightly in front of the other one, alongside it, or slightly behind? Now, because of this ugly top with this piece running away, I need that pointing backwards so that I can't see it, basically. So that now determines how the tree will go in the pot. It's based on the fact that this one curves slightly towards us and the ugly bit points away. So that's how it goes, basically. So the first thing we want is a mound for it to sit on. And that did... What didn't we do? We didn't put the wire in, did we? I can virtually guarantee that I do that every time. So we'll do it now. It just means poking it up through the gauze. It's much better if you put the wire in first. Much, much better. Now we've only got 2 holes and I need 2 bits of wire. That's the trouble with the training pots. 4 holes is better. I've seen one pot with 3, but then that was a round pot, so acceptable, I suppose you could say. So now we're going to have to faff and try not to tip all the media out and have to start again. So I need to know how far apart the holes are, and that's about that. And then we'll turn that up, straighten it, and then hopefully I can hold the pot above me and poke those ends through the gauze without causing too much mischief. Well, that end went in okay. Well, it did once. There we go. The trouble is I've only got one hand. And then we put the other end in. It's just a matter of wiggling it to find a hole. And then I'll push that up, put the pot down, and that's that done. Now my media has moved a bit, but not a lot. And then I'm going to push that one over there and that one over there. So I've got them into the corners now. Now I've got to do the same with the other piece in the other direction. So it was about that much, wasn't it? Something like that. These would adjust, you know, I'm just trying to make my life easier by having them fit in the holes without having to struggle. So that's going to go in. Oh, it's actually lifted the piece of gauze off. I think I'm just going to have to start again, unfortunately. My fault. The pieces, little pieces of wire that hold the gauze on are not really big enough, they're not strong enough. But if I can clear this out of the way now, we might be able to just put them back on once the wire's in place, obviously. It's just one of those things. I mean, I do it with the orchids in the holy clay pots. Get the orchid all nicely set up, get the media in there, and then I haven't got the wire to actually hold the thing in place. And, this is just one of those things that is much, much better if it's done first. So we'll get the wire in, and then we'll put the gauze back on over the top of the wire, and hopefully it will hold itself in place. And then we'll set the media up again. What a nuisance! That was going quite well up until then. So I'm just finding my little ends to poke through the drainage hole. And then we'll go underneath and find them. Yeah, that wire's just too thin, that's what's caused the problem. It's not holding the gauze strongly enough with this thick wire being pulled about. So that's one done. Now let's see if we can do the other one the same. Oh, gotcha. Right, I think we're up and running again now, sort of. Now what we need to do now is make sure this wire is tight, and where I want it, then we'll sort the media out so that we don't get involved with the wire. So my drainage now has a bit of normal media mixed in with it, which is not ideal. But if this is going to be a real bonsai, it's not going to stay in this pot forever, is it? So we go back to making our mound. The reason for the mound is twofold. There's a hollow underneath the tree, and it determines the height of the tree in the pot, allowing for the wire to pull it down tighter, which will compress it. And the idea is that it's just proud of the pot, but not too much. So we'll add a bit more on to allow for pulling down. We'll set our tree how we decided we wanted it, which was the bad bit pointing away from us. Give it a wiggle, make sure it's settled, and then we grab one wire in that corner, one wire in this corner, trying not to knock all the buds off, and pull them gently together and twist. Then what we do is cut the ends off. And the reason we cut the ends off is so that the pliers will go over that and enable a pull and twist mechanism. Pull and twist. And then eventually you'll feel it bite, and that's as tight as it needs to be. It's, it's only to hold it in place, basically. That's all it's for. That's got it. And the other one I'll have to go across and do a similar job. Actually, I could do with pulling a little bit tighter. So, and then what we do is we trim a lot of that off because we don't need it all. It's not going to come undone, is it? It's wire. And then there's less to hide. And then the idea is to push that down somewhere where it can't be seen very much. But it's impossible not to be seen. It has to basically do its job. And then we get the other two pieces. Where's the best ways to go across? I think we'll go around the back this time. We'll come round here. And put this pair across the back of the root system. See, it should hold that nicely. So again, pull and do a couple of twists. You have to decide where the twist is going to be, and then you can cut the long dangly bits off, which just get in the way. And then pull and twist with the pliers, get everything nice and tight. Bit loose at the back, so I'm just going to poke a bit more media underneath before I pull it tight, and then as I pull it tight it'll pull it onto that media. Oh, I must try and find my decent pliers as well. These are electrical pliers. My big fat chunky ones are meant to be doing this job, and they do it an awful lot better than these do. One more. There we go. Cut the end off. tight. There we go. That's in its pot. And I'm just going to try and get a bit under there as well because it's not quite upright. Ow! Well, it's difficult once it's wired. That's a bit better. And then all we do is put a load of media in, like this. And then make sure that there's no gaps. You do that by jiggery pokery, as I call it. You're just making sure that this media is tucking down between any roots that are sticking out from what was left of the root ball, so that there's no gaps. And you can see as I'm doing this, the level of the media that I put in is going down, so it's going somewhere, isn't it? Just make sure that there's no gaps. This is where we found out we haven't got anywhere near enough media. In fact, I might just about get away with it. Bearing in mind I'm going to top dress the tree. That'll do, because don't forget the roots are under this media, and if you remember there weren't many roots at the top of the media when we started scraping it off. They tend to go downwards. Right, so there we go. So that's in its new media. Just brush that lot off. That'll come off when I water it. And then I'm top dressing it with this, which helps keep the weeds down and just makes it look nice. Doesn't really do anything for the plant. As I said, it just gives it, helps keep moisture in and it helps suppress the weeds. Right, that media was quite dry when this was put on, so I will give this a good water now. If my media was quite moist, then I'd probably leave it a day or two. But yeah, happy with that. The upright is slightly off, dead upright, and it leans slightly towards the smaller one, which leans away, so that works. This bit's hidden, that nasty bit at the top, and this, what's going to be the new leader here, is not very good. But what are my choices? Come down to here and make that a leader when this branch is started growing down before it went up, so that one's no good. So I'll probably have to just live with this. And as I said, when it's in leaf it looks quite nice. When it's not, it doesn't, because it's not a very good tree. But there we go. That's 2-3 weeks time that will be in full leaf, and the only other thing I ought to do really is take off what I know I'm not going to keep, because that will only waste energy. Basically, at the moment there's an energy deficit, because basically the trees, the sap's rising from the base of the tree and pushing up to open those buds up. Well, you're wasting energy if you're opening up buds that you're going to trim off in a couple of weeks' time. There's just no point in leaving those twigs there. So I'm just taking this top back hard. So that'll give me a bit of a rounded shape at the top. But some of the branches on this tree have got to be allowed to grow. Now my leader I'm just going to let grow, so that will look silly for a while. And then we've got lots of branches sticking out a bit too far for the size of the tree. So there's no accuracy going on here. This is just basically outline shaping. It's what am I keeping and what am I not keeping on a rough scale. Now the problem with this type of tree, oh, I didn't tell you what it was. It's a Zelkova serrata. It's a type of elm, not native to this country but hardy. And it does have quite small leaves, unless you let it get out of hand, in which case you'll get some very big leaves. So you have to keep on top of these, and the only way to get them to fill out nicely and make nice pads is to just keep pruning. Just keep all the time, prune, prune, prune. Unless you've got a, like I need a leader on that smaller trunk, so that one's got to be allowed to grow. And then coming down this side, I'm just taking it back to its rough shape. Nothing extensive. Crossing branches, got badly crossing branch there. Stuff that's pointing inwards. Just a rough shape for this time of year to go with the repot. And then we'll see what it does. As I said, these when they get going, they grow at a phenomenal rate. Very vigorous. You know, you can get a foot-long shoot that'll grow in a couple of weeks, so they can go mad. And this tree will probably go mad now because it was pot-bound, so root constraint, not good for vigour anyway. And in addition to that, where it couldn't be watered very well, it was underhydrated and consequently underfed. It's now got a media that's got food in it. Food for 6 weeks or so, maybe 8 weeks. So I don't need to feed this for a while. It will take all its food from the nutrients that were in some of that media. So there we go. What did I say it was called? Zelkova serrata. I'll put a pop up. So there you go, that's the first repot. The next repot's going to be hard, it's my pine. And that's so pot bound, it's lifted the whole media mass nearly an inch out of the top of the pot. And I did say that I've been struggling to find a suitable pot without spending a lot of money. Guess what? There's one in the shed that will do very nicely. So I haven't got to buy a pot. And I really am pleased about that because it's the colour I wanted. Not the shape I wanted, but it's good enough. It will be a nice pot for that tree. It's the colour that was more important. So there we go, repot number 1, another one coming up soon. It's not quite so urgent because the candles on the pine haven't started to move yet. So all the goodness of the tree is still down in the roots, but with pines, that's not strictly speaking true because they do still grow in the winter time, very, very slowly. So that sudden rise in sap that you get in deciduous trees is not quite so obvious in the pines. It still happens though. So there you go, see you next. Oh, and the other thing I meant to say is I haven't got my music. My startup and end music that I had on my bonsai startup and end, I got a copyright. Well, not a strike, I got a copyright claim. It's a different thing altogether. All that means is that my monetization is removed and any monetization from the point of the claim goes to the person who owns the copyright to the music. That's okay. It's not okay on the grounds that that was copyright free on the internet. Copyright free, yeah, well it's a con, isn't it? Because basically you go and use it and then they grab your money, having told you it was copyright free. So a little annoyed, but I've replaced the music with something off of the YouTube library. So that YouTube can't complain about that. They gave it to me. So there we go. Another repot to come soon. See you next time.